恭敬大德三听，为此法会集一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，殊真无生。Well, the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attempt bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo, excuse me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmya sanputo 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha. 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 Medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Rebel Master, and all good knowing advisors, welcome back. This is class lecture number 112. I seem to, you'll probably hear me trying to clear my throat quite a bit today. I'm not sure why, but feels like there's something in my throat. So excuse me while I drink some water, and while you're waiting, let me show you this. Okay. Thank you for waiting. So what you see on your screen is a quote from a philosopher called Seneca. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Seneca. There's a branch of philosophy called Stoicism. It's where the word Stoic comes from. When they say you're Stoic, it means that kind of like I don't know. At least to me, it is like unmoving, like Stoic. But so that's where the word comes from. Although Stoicism, if you ask me, one of the easiest ways that I see Stoic or some of the Hellenistic philosophy is kind of like Buddhism applied. When I'm sometimes looking for words, like the Buddha gives us a principle like loving kindness, you begin with yourself. And then there's this quote from Seneca who puts it from a different perspective, but in the same principle. And says, what progress, you ask, have I made? I have begun to be a friend to myself. So I think that's a very nice way of putting it. The Stoics believe that virtue is sufficient for happiness. So just by conducting yourselves well, excuse me, hold on, let me drink more water. Okay. So they believe by just conducting yourself in a virtuous way, that is enough to bring a person happiness. So Seneca wrote, in this particular quote, he says, a person who is a friend to themselves is an aid to all mankind. They are kind, they are calm, they have empathy for themselves and for others. Says people like this are not desperate. They are able to quietly spend time alone, and they don't need to put others down for them to feel good about themselves. And they can stand on the shoulders of giants and instead of stepping on their necks. That means you have confidence in yourself. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Okay. So where are we today? We are still on loving kindness, developing loving kindness for yourself. But first, let me answer a question that was asked maybe 2 weeks ago. So someone asked, I think it was, okay, I don't think she's with us. Oh, Su Wong, I think, yeah, about the practice of the Brahma Viharas and attainment of the dhyanas or the jhanas. So there's this monk who wrote that, and this is from the Sutra. It says the meditations on love, basically it should be loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy may each produce the attainment of the first three absorptions. Absorptions here mean the dhyanas, while the meditation on equanimity will lead to the fourth jhana or dhyana only, in which equanimity is the most significant factor. And I just had finished one of my master's class, and they were talking about nirvana. The professor was explaining what nirvana is all about. And in one of the sutras, the Buddha explained the different kinds of happiness that you can get. And he says the highest form of happiness is in the third dhyana. But there's a higher level of pleasure. It transcends happiness, and that happens in the fourth dhyana, and it's no longer classified as happiness anymore. And that happens in the fourth dhyana. Okay, so Sui Ling said you all can help me read the text if my throat is giving me problems. Thank you. I just might take you all up on that. Okay, so today we're going to look at how to generate loving kindness for yourself, and one of the ways is to recognize the wholesome, the goodness within you, and in the things that you have done. So today we will continue by looking at taking refuge. Okay, and once we are done, I have a few slides on taking refuge. Then we will then move on to mindfulness of the Buddha. And what exactly is the practice of mindfulness of the Buddha about? Because when you take refuge in the Triple Jewel. That's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But if you don't understand what the Buddha is or how to be mindful of the Buddha, then your taking refuge is kind of how you say, kind of rote. You're doing it because you know it's a good thing, but you don't really understand what it means, because you don't really understand how to see the Buddha, how to understand what the Buddha represents. Okay, so Shufu is taken from Shufu's Dharma talks. I think I forgot to put the source down. So this is from volume 1 to 11 of Shufu's talks on Dharma. Shufu says, to take refuge with the Triple Jewel is to be born with your eyes open. If you remember from 2-3 weeks ago, Shufu said taking refuge with the Triple Jewel is the greatest thing in the world. So in this particular talk, he says is to be born with your eyes open. Don't go down the wrong road. What is meant by being born with your eyes open? It means you start a new life with your eyes open. I'm not sure when babies are born and their eyes closed, probably closed, right? Yeah, okay. So you must find the right path. You must recognize clearly, why am I taking refuge? Why do I want to take refuge with the Triple Jewel? This is an important moment. Now is the Dharma ending age. What is meant by the end of the Dharma? It means the demise of the Buddha Dharma. The Dharma is already coming to its end, and it will soon disappear entirely. Officially, we are now in the Dharma ending age. She says the Buddha Dharma is already in its autumn. The sun is about to set, and the road ahead is already dim. There's not much hope. But it is right at this time that we must bring forth our vigor and courage to move forward and rush down the path so that we can reach our destination. This is the general meaning of taking refuge with the Triple Jewel. Today, there are many people with deep good roots who are taking refuge with the Triple Jewel. Some are transformation bodies of bodhisattvas who have come to take refuge. Some are transformation bodies of gods, dragons, and others in the Eightfold Division who have come to take refuge. How to take this, like transformation bodies of bodhisattvas? Is it meant to be literal, metaphorical? I'll leave you to ponder that question while I try to drink some water. Well, I'm not sure, but like, for example, the transformation bodies of bodhisattvas, if you aspire, or if you take, say, Guanyin Bodhisattva as your role model, and you try to use Guanyin's example as a way to guide yourself in your daily, when you make decisions, then you could say you are a transformation body of Guanyin. So you can look at that as well. Yeah. Okay, so Shufu says, some are human beings who have come to take refuge. There are even ghosts and spirits who have come to take refuge. This is the first time that the true refuges have been transmitted at the city of the Dharma realm. The ceremony for taking refuge is particularly magnificent. The heavenly Dharma protectors, the gods, dragons, and others of the Eightfold Division of ghosts and spirits are filling up the space around us. They have come to protect this way place. And then Shufu says, whatever wishes any of you are making about the future will be completely known by these Dharma protectors and good spirits. Each of you should urge yourself on. Now Shufu says, I have made a little vow, which is that whoever takes refuge with me or does not take refuge with me, whoever believes in the Buddha or believes in other religions, as long as they have not become Buddhas, I will wait for them to become Buddhas before I do. So one of Shufu's vows is that if you take refuge with Shufu, he has so much confidence in you that you eventually awaken, that he will not become a Buddha until you have yourself. Shufu will wait for you. He will, even if you let him down, Shufu will not leave you behind. And that's how much confidence Shufu has in you. So for those of you who have taken refuge with Shufu, or as Shufu has mentioned, being as a bodhisattva, Shufu says Shufu says if you have to call Guanin's name for Guanin to come and save you, then she's not a true bodhisattva. In other words, Guanin will save you regardless whether you call her name or not. So Shufu Wow here, which she calls a little wow, reminds me of what he said about Guanin. So regardless of whether you have taken refuge with Shufu or not, then Shufu will still wait for you. Yeah, but taking refuge means that you have kind of it's a vow that you make. It's a promise that you make to yourself. So we take refuge in the Triple Jewel, okay. But before we did, or if you look at the world, what do most people take refuge in? Well, if you walk the streets of San Francisco, or the streets of Oakland, or just outside some streets of Berkeley, you see that a lot of people are taking refuge in alcohol and drugs. Some people take refuge in shopping, or to call it retail therapy. Some people take vacations. I know some people they eat, or some people combine both. I've heard of people. There's this group of elderly people. What they do is every weekend they plan. Every weekend they charter a bus, and a group of them, all friends, they have a different place to go every weekend out of the city, just to try new food. Yeah. So we have a lot of things that we try to distract ourselves from, either life itself or from our own selves. Yeah. And so if you look around, people who are non-Buddhist, they take refuge in a lot of things because they don't know any better. They don't have the Dharma to explain to them about what their better options could be. Yeah. Okay, maybe in this next slide, can we have a volunteer to read? Who would like to read?
I can read.
Okay, go ahead.
Dharma
Thank you.
Master. Okay, loving kindness for yourself. Wait, I see is my mic on or not?
Yes, it is. We can hear you very well.
Okay, loving kindness for yourself. Mindfulness of the Triple Jewel. The Buddha said to the bhikshus, when you are meditating in a forest, an empty house, a charnel ground, a mountain, a wood or desert, and you experience fear, trembling, or exasperation, then recollect the Buddha, thinking, yes, he is the Tathagata, thus come one, Arhat, worthy of homage, Samyak Sambuddha, completely and fully enlightened, Vidyachana Sampanna, endowed with knowledge and practice, Sugata, welcome, Lokavit, knower of the world, Anuttara Purusadam Yasarate, supreme leader of beings to be tamed, Sastavenam Nushanam, teacher of gods and men, Buddha, awakened, and Bhagavat, blessed. Your fears will immediately disappear.
Thank you. You did that very well. Sorry, I didn't think about all the different Sanskrit words, but I think you did a better job than I could have. Okay, so this is the Buddha telling the monks. He says that the setting for this is different. The setting for this is not about loving kindness, but the principle is the same. It's about mindfulness of the Buddha. This is the Buddha giving instruction to the monks because traditionally monks are supposed to meditate alone in the forest where there are, dangerous animals, poisonous insects, snakes, things like that. in mountains, like precipices of a precipice. Is that precipice? Precipice, right? Precipice. At the edge of a slope, right? Precipice. Yeah. In China grounds or cemeteries where they burn the bodies, empty houses, where places, empty houses are where you normally find ghosts. So that's where monks go to meditate. And there are various reasons for that. So people leave you alone, and fear is a great, experiencing fear, like the greatest fear you have ever known, is a great way to hone your concentration. Yeah. Other things are illness or sickness. If you can push yourself through the physical discomfort, basically is to put yourself in a place or in a situation where you have nowhere to run to except your own mind. The only way you can overcome whatever it is that you're experiencing, you will realize that it is through your own mind. All right? Okay, so the Buddha said, you recollect me, the Buddha. And then the Buddha listed down the 10 titles, the ones that are highlighted in orange. Those are the 10 titles of the Buddha. According to Shufu, in the beginning, the Buddha had a lot more titles, and then they shortened it down to 1,000 because people couldn't remember all the titles of the Buddha. So they shortlisted it to 1,000. And then people couldn't, after a while, people became more dim in their faculties, and 1,000 was too much for them. So they reduced it to 100. And after a while, even 100 was too much. And then they reduced it to the official 10, which is what you see in front of you. So for every one of these titles, it holds a different meaning of what the Buddha is that the monks should contemplate. For example, the first one, Tathagata, it means that the Buddha has acquired right knowledge. It also means that the Buddha is endowed with great loving kindness and great compassion. So the loving kindness of the Buddha is great. It's not like our loving kindness. Okay, in one of the commentaries, which I will share with you all in the coming weeks, it says that what is the difference between the Buddha's great loving kindness and normal human beings' normal loving kindness? It says our loving kindness doesn't help anyone. It's just well wishes that we have that for other people to be happy. But the Buddha's great loving kindness actually does benefit people around him. Yeah. And then another meaning for the word Tathagata means the Buddha's words are infallible. That means they're always dependable. Whether the Buddha is scolding you or he is very subtle, not explaining things outright by using metaphors or examples, whether he speaks a few words or a lot of words, whether the meaning he is giving is profound or even superficial, there is nothing false in what the Buddha says. You can always have confidence in the Buddha. So that's what the title Tathagata means. We won't go into this. Basically, what I'm trying to do, because if we want to go into true mindfulness of the Buddha, we will never finish. We'll never finish, as in even if we go towards the end of time, we'll never finish. Not that I can do that, but there's a lot to cover. So what I'm doing is I'm just showing you the different ways, depending on which you prefer, that you can use to be mindful of the Buddha. Okay? All right. But now we are talking about mindfulness of the Triple Jewel. We haven't gone into true mindfulness of the Buddha yet. Okay, so mindfulness of the Triple Jewel. So the next one is the Dharma. So the Buddha says, if you do not recollect the Buddha, you should recollect the Dharma instead. And then how you do it is this: the Dharma of the Buddha is pure, skillfully announced, well said, receiving its retribution in the present lifetime, offering itself to be shared If you recollect the Dharma thus, your fear will immediately disappear. Okay. For those of you who are wondering how just recollecting the Dharma can take away your fear, then it's obvious that you haven't done it well. So you have to try. You have to figure it out for yourself and see if it works. Excuse me. Then the Buddha said, okay, let me change the slide first. Then the third one, the Buddha says, if you do not recollect the Dharma, you should recollect the Sangha. Here it is spelled in the Sanskrit wording of Samgha. And then how you recollect it is like this. The community of disciples of the Buddha cultivates the proper path and acts in accordance with the instructions. In this community, there are arhats and candidates for the fruit of arhat and so on. Then up to the 4 pairs of individuals. What are the 4 pairs of individuals, making 8 in all? There is like the arhat, there are accomplished arhats, and then there are candidates for the fruit of arhatship. So on the way to arhatship, but not haven't accomplished yet, but they are very close. So for the first stage arhat, second stage arhat, and third stage arhat is the same. Those on the way and those who have accomplished. So total makes 8. The Buddha says, this community of disciples of the Buddha is worthy of offerings, worthy of being greeted with joint palms, venerated, saluted, and welcome. For the world, it is a supreme field of merit. If you commemorate the community thus, your fears will immediately disappear. So that's how you can be, from the Buddha himself, how you can be mindful of the Dharma, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Okay, so there's a question. It says, from here, taking refuge basically means it will help one towards one's destination of Buddhahood. My problem is when I tell my students to take refuge, Buddhahood is furthest from their mind. This is the dilemma I have. Maybe there's another way or reason. Okay, good question. We'll keep it for the end. We have 3 questions today, so we'll keep that for the end. I'll try to make sure we have enough time. Okay, so now let's move to mindfulness of the Buddha, and this is from the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra by Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. And so there are various things that you can be mindful of the Buddha. Number 1 is the Buddha's miraculous birth. Number 2 is the Buddha's physical marks. There are 32 major, 80 minor. A few months ago, maybe a year ago, I don't remember, at the end of every lecture, we used to cover the 32 major hallmarks, the Buddha's superhuman strength, and not final, but in this list at least, from this particular Shastra, the Buddha's 5 pure aggregates. Okay, so instead of reading the aggregates right now, and before going into the Buddha itself, I'm not sure how many of you actually have thought about who the Buddha is. As in, when you think about the Buddha, what does the Buddha represent? I know a lot of Mahayana Buddhists, they don't think much of Shakyamuni Buddha at all. Although all the sutras that we have come from him, even the Sutra on the Pure Land, the sutras about Amitabha Buddha, a lot of Mahayana Buddhists feel like they have very close affinities with Amitabha Buddha, but they don't think much about Shakyamuni Buddha. Or it might be the opposite, I'm not sure. But how many of you actually take time to think about who the Buddha is and whether the Buddha is special or not special, or you just take for granted that because he's the Buddha, he's supposed to be, like this great being with supernatural powers and everything else. I'm saying all this from my own experience, my own perspective, and I realized that until I started preparing for mindfulness of the Buddha, I've I've known about the Buddha, but I've never realized how special the Buddha is. I mean, I know that the Buddha is special, but as to how special, it never it never, I think the saying is hit home, you know. For example, just the birth of the Buddha itself, you know. I'm not sure if any one of you, I'm going to go through the details of the Buddha's birth, so it's not a test, I'm not going to ask you. But I'm not sure if any one of you has ever thought of the Buddha's birth as compared to the birth of anyone else that you know of. Whether it is a made-up story, you know, like a movie or a legend or a book, you know. Have you ever thought about the details surrounding the birth of the Buddha compared to any other person, whether real or fictional? And when I was doing the work for today's class, I realized, wow, the Buddha is actually really special just based on the birth alone. Yeah. So the next few slides that I have is about the Buddha's birth. Okay. But before we go there, because I'm not going to cover the rest of the things that you see on your screen in detail, I'll just give a very quick introduction. Okay. The Buddha has 32 major physical marks and 80 minor hallmarks. These are marks of a they call it a chatra white. I'm not going to pronounce the Sanskrit word, but a wheel-turning king or wheel-turning monarch shares these 32 major and 80 minor hallmarks. Basically, if your virtue is perfected, then you will be born with all these hallmarks, all these physical marks. And we will cover some, we won't cover the marks itself, but we'll cover how we know about the marks, okay, of the Buddha. And the next one is the Buddha's superhuman strength. It is said. Okay, so for some people, okay, they might say, oh, a lot of this is just exaggerated stories or facts about the Buddha that becomes a legend after so long, more than 2,500 years or 3,000 years, depending on which calendar you use, and that people have, you know, made the Buddha larger than life. But, you know, the Buddha is larger than life because the Buddha is the only one who has ended birth and death without a teacher. Just think about that for a moment. You know, the Buddha was the only one able to wake up without having a teacher to guide him all the way, to show him the full, without having a teacher to tell him that you are on the right path. He had to figure it out himself. So from that sense, the Buddha is, you know, larger than life. So it is said that the Buddha, because he has this 32 major and 80 minor marks, it is not just outwardly, but inwardly, because he has the qualities of the Buddha. Says anyone who sees the Buddha does not tire of seeing him. You know, they some of the sutras say that they lovingly gaze at the Buddha. So that's the effect the Buddha has. He's very nice to gaze at. You can just continue staring at the Buddha and don't feel like you have had enough. Yeah. And then it says, when you look at the Buddha, one's happiness becomes complete. So just looking at the Buddha, you become happy. And not just become happy, but your happiness is full. Your happiness is complete. Yeah. And one who sees the Buddha does not one who sees the Buddha forgets about the 5 worldly objects of enjoyment and never thinks of them again. That means when you see the Buddha, you get inspired, and everything else just pales in comparison. Music, whatever, arts and all that, after looking at the Buddha, all those things don't mean much to you anymore. Yeah, I guess that's why a lot of people, when they encounter the Buddha, they are able to awaken because their happiness is complete. Yeah. And then the Buddha has superhuman strength. They say the Buddha has the how you say, the strength of, let me see, was it 15 white elephants, like king elephants. Yeah, 15 white elephants. And then let me see, and then the last one is very interesting, the Buddha's 5 pure aggregates. I have included the Sanskrit word, which is Anasrava Skanda. For us, we just have the 5 aggregates, okay, Skanda. And our Skandas refer to our form, feeling, formation, perception, and consciousness. But for the Buddha, it's different. First of all, it's pure. And secondly, the terms are different. First, it is morality, samadhi, or concentration, wisdom. And then the fourth one, Vimukti Skanda, or the deliverance Skanda. It means that the Buddha is free of any disturbing emotions. So you can never make the Buddha upset or angry or stressful. No way, because the Buddha is totally free. And then the final one is also very interesting. I won't try to pronounce that, but it's the deliverance of knowledge and seeing. And one of the abilities from having this skanda is that the Buddha knows how to wake a person up. So sometimes it says the Buddha knows that a person will find deliverance by entering the concentration of emptiness. Another person by entering into the concentration of signlessness. Yet another into the concentration of wishlessness. These are all different ways of meditation. And it says he knows that one individual will be led to deliverance without resorting to any skillful means. So without having to use skillful means, he can guide the person to enlightenment. It says another will find deliverance after a long time, a third after a short time, a fourth in this very moment. It says one individual will find deliverance if he is addressed in subtle words, another in coarse words, yet another in varied conversation. One individual will find deliverance if he sees miracles, another if the Dharma is preached. The person in whom lust predominates finds deliverance if his desire is increased. So this is very interesting. Normally we think that for someone who has a lot of desire, he should reduce his desire, because that's what the sutras, that's what the Buddha's own teachings say. But because the Buddha knows a person's individual causes and conditions, the Buddha knows whether, I should increase his desire or not. Then for one who has hatred in predominantly himself, the Buddha knows whether if I increase his hatred or decrease it, it will be useful for him. And then apparently there are stories about dragons who the Buddha found. The Buddha knew that he had to increase their hatred for them to awaken. Yeah. Okay, we have another question. The Buddha Shakyamuni is a Praceka Buddha according to definition. Yes, strict according to the definition, the strict definition, kind of yes, but according to the if you look at the abilities of a Praceka Buddha compared to an actual Buddha, no. Yeah. All right. So yes and no. Okay. So right now we are going to look at the Buddha's miracle birth. Okay. Because I drank a lot of water, I need to take a quick break. So I'll ask another volunteer to help read. Who would like to read?
I can read.
Okay, go ahead. And then if you finish before I come back, just wait and I will change the slide.
Mindfulness of the Buddha, the Buddha's miraculous birth. Mahaprajna Paramita Sastra. The Buddha is of the lineage of the noble Chakravartin king who ruled at the beginning of the Kalpa. He was born among the Shakyans, a wise and powerful family in Jambuvipa in the noble Gautama clan. At the time of his birth, rays illumined the Trisha I'm going to pass on that one. Dharma Deva Raja held a precious parasol and Chakra Devendra received him on celestial precious garments. The Naga Raja Anavatapa and the Narga Raja Sagara bathed him with warm perfume water.
Thanks, Ron. I sorry for that tricky word. Okay, that word, which I also will not try to pronounce. If you look at our translations in DRBA, we call it trichiliocosm. Trichiliocosm. Yes, even that is not easy to pronounce. What that means is a 3,000 great thousand-fold world system. In other words, it means the largest possible universe, and it is composed of, give or take, 1 billion world systems. And every world system in the 1 billion world system has a Mount Sumeru, has the 4 continents, including Jambuvipa, which is where we are. And if I'm not mistaken, one trichiliocosm has one Buddha in it. So that's the extent of the number of beings that the Buddha teaches, that Shakyamuni Buddha teaches in his world system. Yeah. So it says here the Buddha is the lineage of the noble Chakravartin king. So the Buddha comes from a family with a really illustrious history, and they're direct descendants of a wheel-turning monarch. So all the way down from the beginning of the Kalpa. Yeah. And when he was born, he had the Brahma god and Lord Indra or Lord Chakra receive him when he was born. Okay. And then the 2 dragon kings bathed him with warm perfume water. So who else do you know that when they were born were greeted by the great Brahma king, which is the highest? If you look at any religious text and you try to figure things out, you can't get any other being than any higher being than the great Brahma king in terms of who people worship. And then Lord Indra, and here's a baby being born, and they both come to receive him. And then the 2 great dragon kings then bathe him. And then it is said that as soon as he was born, the Bodhisattva stepped onto the ground. Wherever his feet touched the ground, a large lotus immediately sprung from the earth. Then the great Naga kings, Nanda and Upananda. Okay, so this is from a different sutra now. I'm sorry, I should have said that first. This is from the Lalitavistara Sutra, which is called the Play in Full, because it shows how Shakyamuni Buddha, when he came into this world and before that and after that, how everything is like a play. It's been repeated many, many times throughout many different world systems. Each time a Buddha appears. It is like a script, like a play that you go to. And in this particular sutra, the 2 dragon kings have different names because over time, sometimes due to translation or just different accounts, or maybe even sometimes the encounters are different Buddhas in different worlds. I'm not sure, but we have encountered. I have like variations in the sutras is because there are different Lord Indras. In our Jambuvipa, there's only one Lord Chakra, but in Shakyamuni Buddha's Buddha land, there are 1 billion Lord Chakras. So sometimes there are discrepancies as to their past lives and how they became Lord Chakra, or there are multiple Lord Chakras. Okay, so anyway, in this particular sutra, the two dragon kings named Ananda and Upananda, who revealed their upper bodies in the sky and produced two streams of cool and warm water to rinse the bodhisattva's body. Shakra, Brahma, the guardians of the world, and many hundreds of thousands of gods then bathed the bodhisattva in perfumed water and scattered flower petals over him. A parasol of precious gems and two tail wisps also appeared from mid-air. Okay, you want to see what that looks like? Okay, so this is a Buddha image that was dated to, I think, the year 450 or something like that, a very long time ago. If you look at the back of the Buddha image on the right, in the middle, I think the top part is maybe the Buddha's mother giving birth. I'm not quite sure, holding the tree. And then in the middle, the Buddha with the halo behind him. And then there are two figures kneeling next to the Buddha with the snake heads coming out. Those are the two dragon kings. Yeah. There are different variations to the story of the Buddha being bathed. One variation is one constant thing is that there's always two streams of water. One is hot, one is warm, and the other one is cool, warm and cool water. Okay, so in one variation of the story, it falls from the sky like rain from heaven. In another variation of the story, the water is like a what do you call it? A spring. It comes from the ground to form a pool. And then there are other variations where, like what we just read, the water comes forth from the two dragon kings. Okay, now look at the time. It is 10:33. Okay, so what I was going to do next, okay, if that wasn't amazing enough of the Buddha's birth, because I haven't encountered anyone's birth, even like Lord Brahma's birth, when he was born, he was all alone. Lord Brahma in his heaven, when he was born, he actually fell. The Buddha told him, when you were born here, you actually came from the other heavens. And when he was born in the heaven, it's all dark. It was only him, and that's Lord Brahma, who a large population of the world worships as the ultimate God. Who else has such a birth, or even think of how to like make it up? Even if you were to make up a person's birth, I'm not sure if anyone's imagination can be so wild, to make all these things up. But anyway, the next few slides I was going to introduce you to what happens even before the Buddha was born. If you think that the Buddha's birth was amazing, let me show you what happened as they prepared for the Buddha's birth, which is even more amazing. But I'm not sure if we have the time today because we have 3 questions. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Yes, Ron.
So I would like to put this into context as a beginner. When I came into Buddhism, when I came to a temple and started reading the text and so on, I knew more about Earth Store Bodhisattva and Guanyin Bodhisattva than I knew of the Buddha. You know that? And it wasn't until years later that I heard for the first time Dharma Master was a class I was teaching. I was taking, and it said, "You know how compassionate the Buddha is?" I never even put the two words. Never put the two things together. Until then. So I just want to give you a context of how a beginner sees the Buddha. It's not like we know a lot about him. There's not a lot of things written about him that the beginner gets to see. Sorry about that, but that's all I can say.
Yes, thanks for sharing that. It's true. We because we have the Bodhisattvas and then we have like Amitabha Buddha, we tend to take Shaka Shakyamuni Buddha for granted, like he's just there. So which is why I'm doing this, which is why I'm going into a bit more detail about mindfulness of the Buddha, and I myself also have been how you say, my eyes are also opening as I am doing my own studies and research to share with all of you. Yeah, and I'm it's not that I'm discovering new things. These are things already knew, but I just never saw it in this way. But why am I sharing all this? Is because mindfulness of the Buddha is a very important part of the practice, especially since we have all taken refuge with the Buddha. So the Buddha is our teacher, and although we may have affinities, some of us may feel that our affinities are close to Amitabha Buddha. The story of Shakyamuni Buddha can be applied for all Buddhas. For example, the Medicine Master Buddha's Pure Land is identical to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. If you've never been to either Pure Land, you won't, of course, you won't be able to tell the difference. But even if you've been to one, you go to the other, you find it's all the same. Yeah. And the trials and tribulations that Amitabha Buddha has gone through is the same as Shakyamuni Buddha. The details might be slightly different, but everything else as to the, how you say, what comes before, what comes after is all the same. Okay. Yeah. So Sri Ling says that in the Theravada teachings, the stories of Gautama Buddha or Shakyamuni Buddha is studied a lot. Yes, because that's the only Buddha that they have predominantly. You go to any Theravada temple, the image that they have is always of Shakyamuni Buddha. Whereas if you go to some Mahayana temples, usually it's Amitabha Buddha as well. Yeah, or the Bodhisattvas. Okay, so we have 3 questions today. All right, the first question is about the word meditation and what exactly is meditation. Okay, so let me share this document that I have. Okay, let me increase the size. Okay, so there's this word here, bhavana. I have shared it with you before. Bhavana, it says, is a Sanskrit term commonly translated into English as meditation. It is derived from the root bu, to be or to become, and has a wide range of meanings, including cultivating, producing, manifesting, imagining, suffusing, and reflecting. Is the text too small? Are you able to read on your screens? Because I know some of you are watching this on a phone.
No, it's too small.
Too small? Okay, hold on. All right, let me.
11 p.m. and then station client confidential. Patient doctor confidential. Patient.
Okay, I hope that's better. Okay, so bhavana is usually translated as cultivation. And I've shared this with you all before in a previous class about this word called practice or bhavana, cultivation or practice. Okay, let me scroll down. It says it is in the first sense, that of cultivation, that the term is used to mean the sustained development of particular states of mind. However, bhavana in Buddhism can include studying doctrine, what we are doing right now, studying the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, memorizing sutras, and chanting verses to ward off evil spirits. The term thus refers broadly to the full range of Buddhist spiritual culture, embracing the bringing into being of such generic aspects of training as the path, specific spiritual exercises. Hey, look at that. For example, loving kindness, which is our topic, or even a general mental attitude such as virtuous states of mind. So basically, bhavana or meditation covers a lot. We always think about the word meditation as sitting meditation. Okay, you just sit down on your meditation cushion and you try not to move and you want to still your mind. That is a very strict definition of the word meditation. But bhavana, practice, cultivation in the Buddhist sense covers reciting the Buddha's name, meditating, walking meditation, bowing, reading the sutras, memorizing the sutras, writing out the sutras, all those things that we do that are considered practice, reciting mantras, for example. These are all known as meditation, because if you apply your mind in the right way, then it is considered meditation. Shufu said that when Bodhidharma was teaching I'm not sure whether Shufu said Kung Fu or Tai Chi. I think Bodhidharma taught the monks Tai Chi in the Shaolin temple. That's the legend is that Shaolin Kung Fu came from Bodhidharma, who taught the monks to protect themselves against bandits. But I think Shufu was the one that said Bodhidharma taught them as a form of exercise, so that the monk's body were in good health, and that while doing those exercises, some of the monks actually became enlightened. Why? Because they had the way they applied their minds would be the same as if they were sitting on a meditation cushion. All right. So coming back to the text, the term is also used in the specific sense of a path of cultivation which brings the insights of the preceding path of vision. This is when you go deep into meditation. Hence, bhavana entails all the various sorts of cultivation that an adept must undertake in order to enhance meditation, improve its efficacy, and bring it into being. More specifically, as meditation, two general types of meditation are sometimes distinguished in the commercial literature: stabilizing meditation, or samatha, in which the mind focuses with one-pointedness on an object in an effort to expand the powers of concentration, and analytical meditation, vipassana, in which the meditator conceptually investigates a topic in order to develop insight into it. So there you go. It can mean meditation strictly, or it can also mean, usually bhavana means any Buddhist practice. Okay, so it's already time. I'm so bad at time management. Okay, I'll go through Siu Wong's question, and then I'll keep Ron's question for next week, because I only understand half of Ron's question. Okay, so Siu Wong's question is, taking refuge basically means it will help one towards one's destination of Buddhahood, right? Yes, correct. And then she said, the problem is when I tell my students to take refuge, Buddhahood is furthest from their mind. This is the dilemma I have. Maybe there is another way or reason. Well, you can't force people to take refuge. If you tell someone to take refuge and they take refuge because of you, then it's not really for the right reasons. The best is if they understand the meaning of taking refuge from you, okay? But you also have to understand the meaning of taking refuge yourself. So the best is not to, you can encourage people, but we shouldn't I wouldn't use the word force. I know you don't force your students. But when we try to encourage people, let me see how to, the ideal situation is through your own transformation as a Buddhist, walking the path, and then the way you treat people, okay, the way you exemplify the teachings of Buddhism, you become an example, a good example of what Buddhism is and how Buddhism helps you become a better person and how it can improve your life. Not improve life like make you richer or something, but make you more patient, make you more kind, make you react to situations with wisdom instead of emotion or panic. And the you through Buddhism then has an effect on people around you. And when it has an effect on people around you, they come and ask you for advice. And when they ask you for advice, then that might be an opportunity for you to explain, like they ask, oh, how do you learn to be so patient or so kind, or you're always so happy? You know, I would have gotten angry, but you seem to be so joyful to that person, and you were so kind, and you managed to calm that person down. How do you do it? And then you explain that it is through the skills you learn through the Dharma. And it is true, if through that they feel inspired enough to want to take refuge, then that would be the best way. But not because you believe is the best for them, and then you encourage them to take refuge, because they don't, like you say, they may not have the Buddhahood is the furthest from their mind, so they may not be ready at all. You know, and when you say students, I'm not sure how old they are. Normally, when unless someone has gone through certain experiences in life, they may not appreciate the Dharma at all. So even though it may be good for them, it may not be the right time for them. And so they may do it because you ask them to do it, but their heart and their minds are not there. So there's no benefit to them at all. You will feel happy for them, but they don't get any benefit out of it themselves. So sometimes, you know, certain things like the Dharma is better for them to make the first step rather than you telling people or encouraging people. The only way to be the Bodhisattvas, they don't do that. What the Bodhisattvas do, which is why it's so hard to convert people, is that they make you do it yourself. So in transference of merit, that's actually what Bodhisattvas do. Because there's a criticism about how Mahayana Buddhists always, they transfer merit, thinking that we've done something great. The Bodhisattva's perspective on transferring merit is more like a vow or a promise to themselves, to the Bodhisattvas, that they will try their best to make you want to do good things in the future. So transfer merit doesn't mean that, you do good thing, you transfer merit, and then the person actually benefits from you. The benefit is indirect. I say this with a lot of confidence because I just read this today in the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra. So what happens is the Bodhisattva, their transfer of merit means that in the future, when the time is right, they will slowly use skillful means to make a person, for example, want to take refuge themselves. They will try their best to influence someone to so that the person themselves want to take the 5 precepts, things like that. So then it's sincere for them. Then when they do it, it's how you say, it means something. Okay, yeah. So I would say, instead of encouraging your students to take refuge, you should encourage yourself to be the best example of Buddhism that you can be. For example, I've used this example before. If you choose a Kung Fu teacher, okay, if you're choosing someone, a Kung Fu teacher, would you, and you go to their studio, who would be the better teacher? The one whose students, okay, you can find a very impressive teacher, okay, who can kick very high and do somersaults and all that, and very impressive with a long white beard, wearing the Chinese Kung Fu uniform. He looks exactly like how you think a Kung Fu teacher will look like. But his students are all totally useless. When they kick, they fall down, they slip and fall, they can't even punch. And all his students are like that. But then you meet another Kung Fu teacher who doesn't look like a Kung Fu teacher at all, but his students are all super impressive. They can fly. Okay, don't literally fly, but they can do flying kicks. When they punch the wood breaks. Who would you be more impressed by? Okay, so meaning, if you want to impress people, okay, you yourself, like when we tell people, oh, my shufu is very good, my shufu is very good. Your shufu is only as good as how much you can show in representing your shufu. Yeah. So you ask people to take refuge with the triple jewel, then you yourself have to be very, very convincing as someone who has benefited from the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, so Ron, I'll get your question next week. And because to understand your question fully, I have to go back to last week's lecture. All right? Okay, let us dedicate merit. Does anyone have any more questions while I'm looking for the slide? I'm not going to answer them now, but at least I know I can. Yes,
Yes,
go
I
ahead.
have one more question.
Yes, please.
You are going to continue with the method of doing loving kindness meditation, or has it stopped to where you last finished?
Oh, no. All this has to do with loving kindness. Because loving kindness.
I mean the method of doing the metta bhavana.
This is one of the method.
No, the last time you the talk that you gave was that you transmit loving kindness to a neutral person, a person whom you like, and a person whom you dislike. Okay.
Yes.
So after that, is there any more steps to it?
We haven't come to that step yet, because now we are at the step before that, which is how to develop loving kindness for yourself.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry if I haven't made that clear. Before we can think about radiating loving kindness to people around us, first you have to learn how to develop loving kindness for yourself.
Okay. Understand.
Yeah, so now we are still at that stage of learning what are the things within us that we can feel good about ourselves. So we have talked about generosity, and then we have talked about taking refuge. And part of taking refuge is also understanding what it means to have taken refuge with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So today we are looking at the part about the Buddha, halfway through, and why the Buddha is actually someone very, very special. And hopefully next week we'll have enough time. I will introduce the Buddha from the perspective of the Lotus Sutra, because the Buddha is actually like a very, very caring father figure. Yeah. All right. And until we see the Buddha from that perspective, sometimes the Dharma is very hard for the Dharma to come alive. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's dedicate merit. Thank you for that question. Anyone else? If you do, you can keep it for next week. Okay. All right. Let's dedicate merit. And thanks to our readers today, we had a very Peggy did a good job in requesting the Dharma. She knows, she followed the tune very well. Yeah. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Trying to find, hold on, let me see if I can find. There's a sound setting. Okay, all right. Namaste. Okay, 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Rebel Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Amitabha.
Thank you, 法师。
法师，阿弥陀佛。